This is a standard gauge railway.
It's a towering achievement. Kenya's standard gauge railway.
Kenya's standard gauge railway has been operating for about 6 years now. Its passenger service connects the port city of Mombasa and the capital Nairobi, while its freight service holds containers destined for neighboring countries.
It was once envisioned as the flagship project of Kenya's Vision 2030 plan.
Kenya is an economic powerhouse in the East African region.
Its Vision
Kenya's Vision 2030, which is about making Kenya a middle-income economy in the next.
Kenya needs to invest massively in.
However, it has now become a controversial saga of dashed hopes and mounting challenges. What began as a visionary endeavor to connect Kenya's coastal ports with its inland borders has since evolved into a narrative fraught with controversy and uncertainty. Join us as we unravel the tumultuous history of the SGR, from its ambitious inception to its uncertain future. Before we discuss the SGR, it's important to take a look at the history of railways in Kenya.
The building of a railway from Mombasa to Kisumu brought the inaccessible interior into contact with the outside world. Land flanking the new railway, seldom grazed by the nomadic tribesmen and cultivated not at all, was taken over by the white man, populated with cattle and cultivated.
In 1884, at the behest of Leopold II, the Butcher King of Belgium, Otto von Bismarck ordered a conference in Berlin where they discussed the partition of Africa. The British, under King Edward VII, had staked their ownership of Egypt and the lands upstream of the Nile. However, they had to assert dominance over it, especially the control of Uganda and Lake Victoria, which the Germans under Karl Peters and his German East African Company were gunning for. The argument was that whoever controlled Uganda controlled the source of the Nile, thus controlling Egypt and the Suez Canal, which was the central node of trade with the rest of the world. Kenya was nothing more than an afterthought. Henry Morton Stanley once said of Kenya,
I take but little interest in the region through which the railway must run, from the coast to Lake Victoria, because of itself it is scarcely worth a thought. By itself it is not worth the luxury of a railway.
In 1895, the British Parliament will vote on behalf of what they termed as the Lunatic Express at an initial budget of £2 million, or around 9 billion Kenya shillings today, which will later balloon to 5.5 million or 22.5 billion shillings. In 1896, the Uganda Railway Act was enacted and construction began. The main source of labor for the project was skilled and technical Indians imported from India at the time under British rule, and whose influence is responsible for the choice of the meter gauge, similar to the Indian railway gauge. Of the 32,000 immigrant Indians, 2,500 of them died, with 28 of them victims of the infamous man-eater lions of Savo. 6,450 of them would remain and found the present local Indian community. 5 years later, in 1901, the railway reached Kisumu and later Malaba. The railway followed the old caravan route through Nairobi, which at the time was nothing more than a barren campsite. The effect of the railway on the colony included the rapid enforcement of British dominance all over the interior of Kenya, the shift in colony headquarters from Machakos, which was bypassed to Nairobi, the stratified hub of regional aristocracy, and the upgrade of the status of Kenya. The railway was critically important in reducing freight costs, which were originally transported through expensive porters and ox carts. According to the World Bank, it reduced freight costs from 11 shillings per ton mile to 0.09 shillings in 1902, ensuring a profitable export venture for settlers with access to the rail. Fast forward 100 years later,
Kenya ceased to be a colony and became independent.
And the new independent country, under the government of Moi Kibaki, decided the existing railway was outdated and a new modern railway line was needed. The initial plan for the project, as agreed by the governments of Uganda and Kenya in 2008, envisioned a line stretching from Mombasa to Kampala in order to make it viable. However, the project will cost a significant sum to finance, money the then government of Moi Kibaki could not afford.
You're broke!
At the time, the Kibaki government was considering the project, China was seeking to shed its self-imposed isolation and project its global dominance through the strategy of economic diplomacy. China agreed to provide financing or loan for constructing the project under the Exim Bank. The fiasco starts with the regulation of the China Roads and Bridges Corporation in Kenya by Peter Gatere and Leonard Ndongo. CRBC is important as it will be the Chinese executor of the contract. Soon after, A negotiating team for Kenya was created. The first contract for civil works was signed on July 12, 2012, at a value of Kenya shillings 290.9 billion. The second one, for the supply of locomotives and rolling stock by CRBC, was signed on August 29, 2012, and would cost roughly $1.1 billion, or around 114.6 billion Kenya shillings at the time. Unsurprisingly, the Kibaki government abandoned the expensive project, only for the incoming government of President Kenyatta to reopen the project, signing the third contract with China's Exim Bank for a loan of $3.8 billion on May 11, 2014. The first sign of the unequal and suspicious nature of the project occurred on May 15, 2014, when TSDI, a state-owned Chinese company, was awarded the contract for supervising the project at a cost of $41 million. This meant that financing, construction, and supervision of the project were all awarded to Chinese companies, while the Kenyan citizen provided labor and the taxpayers would foot the bill. Furthermore, the CRBC was exempted from paying taxes for all imported equipment, while shunning local industries for their quote-unquote low-quality materials. They were also allowed to arbitrate disputes regarding the project outside of Kenya. Finally, they had a 5% variation leeway for the cost of the contracts. The project broke ground on December 2014, quickly gaining notoriety for its high price tag and the subsequent eviction and demolition process all along its planned route. Controversy also surrounded the planned route to the Nairobi National Park and Wildlife Sanctuary, notable for being the only wildlife park inside a city. However, the Chinese contractor refuted ecological accusations by pointing out the track will be suspended on tilts and would not disturb wildlife corridors. Work on the project proceeded quickly, and on June 17, 2017, Madaraka Day, the first passengers boarded the train 2.5 years ahead of schedule.
The true beginning of our transformation journey, and ultimately Kenyans from all corners will begin to see the benefit not just of this rail, but the ancillary activities that will develop as a result of us developing this spine as well as our continuation towards Port Kisumu.
Soon after, however, issues relating to the feasibility of the project started to pop up, not least of which was the unprecedented corruption and embezzlement surrounding it.
According to international standards of building a railway line of this particular gauge should be in the region of about $2 million per kilometer. And this has now been reported as $6 million.
The project was considered by many to be overpriced, considering the case of neighboring African countries like Tanzania, whose railway is fully electrified, and Ethiopia, which has 115 of its 759 kilometers of rail as dual carriage. In 2018, former President Kenyatta signed a decree transferring cargo clearance from the port of Mombasa to the Mombasa and Nairobi inland container depot. This was later reverted in September 2022 by successor President Ruto. The list of problems, however, did not end there. In 2021, after a spate of losses with its Belt and Road Initiative, the Chinese government published guidelines aimed at promoting high-quality development of the Belt and Road Initiative, aiming for high-standard, sustainable, and people-centered progress. As a result, the Chinese government refused to provide financing for the last stretch of the project due to low feasibility. This was partially fueled by the hesitancy of the Uganda government to construct their own SGR. Currently, the next phase of the project has been left in limbo where the government has shifted attention to continuing the remainder of the journey to Uganda using the revamped MGR. As of now, the railway is yet to post a profit. However, revenue growth has been on the incline, following a 50% increase in passenger fare, increasing revenue to 18.2 billion Kenya shillings, up by 21% from the previous 2022 year. Moreover, in its June 2023 Special Focus Report on Kenya, the World Bank said this of the project. With a traffic volume of nearly 6 million tons in 2021, the SGR is becoming economically viable for investment in aligning with the further development of the railway sector. The electrification of the SGR, as outlined in the NCCAP, should be subject to further study. While a complete electrification of the railway seems far away, this signals hope for the project, which together with the planned electrified 3,000-kilometer Lamu-Addis Ababa to Juba line will fortify Kenya as a key regional trade and transit hub. If you enjoyed this video and would like to watch more like it, hit the like and subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment for topics that you'd like to see us cover.